Hello and welcome. Today we have game analysis, a full coaching session with one of my highest rated students, Noah, who's about 1900chess.com, and we planned on analyzing multiple games, but we only had time for one, simply because there was so many instructive moments that you wouldn't believe. So for that reason, I put the timestamps in the description below so you can see all the topics that we cover, all the specific moments, but I recommend you see the entire video, even watch it at double speed if necessary or in small bits because it is a long video, but I think you're going to learn a lot. Also, if you're interested in coaching, feel free to DM me or write a comment down below. Enjoy.
All right, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to take a look at some games.
Sweet.
So you said you've been playing a lot, one game a day, as we said. Okay, and we're just going to see as many as possible.
Yeah, I also played a few on an alt. So Ramona the cat, I think we're friends on that one too.
Okay, awesome. Well, let me just take a look. Our previous was on the 14th. Okay, so everything until the 14th. Ramon,
I think there's like an under, maybe we're not friends. It's like Ramona underscore the underscore cat. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
oh, yeah.
I played like 2 or 3 games on that account.
Oh, three. Okay, we're going to see those. We're going to see those as well. All right. Okay, we don't need the engine. Let's take a look. Okay, Caro-Kann advance. 96, yeah. This is what we talked about, bishop g4, knight bd2.
Yeah, I thought I had a tactic here of like knight takes d4, but then I realized queen a4 check, which that's why I like took the pawn is because I was gonna take with the knight, but then like queen a4 check, and then like knight c6, queen takes g4, I thought.
Yeah, that is correct. And if bishop d7 to cover it against the check, then they just take the knight. You don't have a good way to deal with that, so well calculated.
I guess.
e6 is best. h3, bishop h5, of course, no reason to give up this immediately. They just replace
I
it.
wasn't I wasn't sure because he ended up getting like a lot of like he was pushing his pawns and it seemed like an aggressive position he got, but maybe I
Hmm.
made a mistake farther down the line.
Yeah, that's usually indicative of a mistake further down the line because this individual decision feels like bishop h5 is correct. Because
Okay,
in some lines we want to take here, but those are the lines where they don't have this knight d2, and they often have to go either queen takes or g takes, and both of
sure.
those fall into our strategy of attacking d4, trying to win it. So
Because
right
it
now,
seems
this doesn't make sense.
yeah, it seems also like the knight on d2 is kind of like blocking in the dark squared bishop, so it didn't really make sense to like
Right.
trade my active bishop for his weird knight.
Yeah, agreed. A lot of players would think, oh, I'm trading this for this, but in fact, you're trading this for this
Right, right.
because takes. So that's all, of course, a bad trade. Bishop
Hmm.
h5 definitely correct in my eyes. We're going to see how you got in trouble later, but for the time being, this is very good. Bishop
Okay.
d5, I don't quite understand because they're never really going to take here. I mean, they
Hmm.
shouldn't. So let's see how this plays out. 97 definitely correct. Queen a4, strange plan. Okay, so what white should be doing instead is
Yeah.
basically trying to finish development as soon as possible and use this extra space to launch a king set attack later.
Hmm.
So something along the lines, like a combination of g4, getting the bishop out, castling, moving the knight, like pure development, and then g4, f4, f5. Like f5 is their main pawn break, and
Interesting.
they can afford to push these pawns, even though they're castled here, simply because the position is dead closed, as you remember
Okay.
from our strategy lesson.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's interesting. So, how did you know that like G4, F4, F5 was the main play here? Like, is it just like you played positions like this before, or is it just obvious based on this position alone?
I've played this before, so it's partial experience, but mostly it's reading the pawn structure. So the
Gotcha.
pawn structure tells you all the plans and everything you need to know. Mostly the pawn chains.
Okay.
The principal states attack in the direction of your pawn chain. So you, as black, have this one which points queenside. So most of our play will be queenside. They have this small one pointing kingside. So that's what they're gonna do as well.
Okay.
Partial experience, partially reading the position.
Hmm.
Right. So game continues. Bishop b5, queen a4, kind of a step in the wrong direction for white.
Hmm.
A6, great. Okay, officially a mistake. Right now, I think bishop d3, just admit your mistake and continue.
Interesting.
But again, now they're making the mistake that we didn't make over here.
Uh,
They're trading
okay.
this for this,
Oh, interesting.
but they
I don't know if
think
I
that they're
captured with the
trading this
knight
for
or
this.
not. I think
I
if I take
think
it with the
knight takes
pawn.
is best, but yeah, you
Oh,
did.
okay.
B takes C is playable, I think, but very awkward. Because then their
Okay,
queen, you have a really tough time chasing away. Your knight
right.
is barely holding onto this. If they manage to develop quickly enough, that's a backward spawn. A little bit
Yeah, good
risky.
point.
Yeah. Knight takes is just clean.
Yeah, opens up the bishop.
Opens up the bishop as well, yeah. G4 was played okay. B5,
Oh my God, I think that's a huge blunder.
blunder, really.
I thought he had maybe queen c2, and then I'm just losing. I could be wrong. I didn't see that. Like,
You have to see knight b4 as a counter tempo.
knight b4, and then can't he just play like queen b3 maybe?
That the knight on b4 is defended by your bishop on f8, the dark square bishop.
Oh, gotcha.
So you
So
use
it
the
was
intermediate move to get to a defended square, so it's okay. But
okay.
if you didn't see that during the
I
game, you got a
didn't.
bit lucky.
I didn't see that.
Okay, that's fine.
I
Well,
may.
there is some
I
luck in chess.
may have found that though after queen c2. I don't know, but
Most
anyways.
likely you would. You would panic a little bit. So b5, when they play queen c2, you'd be like, oh, damn it. Like, what now?
Yeah,
But I think you would find it. Yeah.
I guess recovering is check
Intermediate
on
move.
c6 too. Yeah, okay.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, obviously watch out for those kind of things. But one thing I want to mention here is because it's tempting to do this because it's a counterattack. And I remember how we talked about counterattacks are always better than defenses.
Yeah,
This is an exception to the rule.
because we don't want the pawn on
And
b5 or why?
not necessarily. Basically, the way I see this is this queen is not a strong queen putting pressure on my position. It's an
Hmm.
exposed queen who is kind of out of position. Now, that's not immediately obvious, but the fact is that the only thing this queen is doing is pinning the knight.
Okay,
And the way we take advantage of pins usually is by attacking the pinned piece as many times as possible. But they have no way to pile up on this knight. So this pin
true.
itself is useless. In other
Okay.
words, all the strong parts of this queen are not really relevant. Whereas I would say that b5 you have any time you want. So this is
Mm,
more of a timing thing than anything else. Because
okay,
what I'm seeing right now is that let's say I just play bishop g6. So they just attacked me, I just followed their idea instead of counterattacking.
sure.
What I'm seeing is white's next moves. The white's next moves are probably castling, and then they have to somehow move this knight. But the only way
Sure.
to move this knight that makes sense, like in an aggressive fashion, is knight b3. They don't
Oh,
really want to undevelop unless absolutely necessary.
you
And
trap the queen with b5?
b3 traps the queen with b5. Exactly.
That's pretty sick.
Yes. So this is where counterattacks are sometimes worse than just following your opponent's idea, because this just reminds them, hey, you have a bad piece.
Right.
To give
Okay.
you a bit more of a clear example, because this is a little bit it's not as clear as I would like it to be. So let's say that this were a knight, for example, a
Okay.
knight at the edge of the board instead of a queen. Then b5, provided that they cannot go knight c5, would be just a reminder that they have to come back into the game.
Okay.
Ideally, when the opponent has a knight at the edge of the board, you want to just leave it there, make him forget about it.
Gotcha.
And by a kick move, you actually remind him to get it back in the game. So this is similar to how I see this. You basically said, hey, your queen is misplaced. Please move it to a better spot.
Yeah, helping him.
Yeah. So I wouldn't really call
Hmm.
this a blunder. It's more like inaccuracy, maybe mistake. I don't think it's that severe. Blunder would be like you lose material. But yeah.
Do you think that maybe this is the pointless tangent, but after like b5, queen c2, I might have rook c8, or is that just
I
too
was looking at that, but
okay?
after g takes h, I didn't find any good discoveries. You could take a pawn, one of these,
Oh,
whichever one you choose, but they just move the queen away, and you lost a piece for pawn.
gotcha. Okay. Too fancy.
Although now that I double check that calculation, I'm seeing knight c2 at the end. 1 second. So let's say b5, queen c2, rook
Okay.
c8, g takes h, knight d4, and they have to move the queen, it seems. And wherever they go with the queen to somewhere safe, knight c2 is like a pre-move, defended by your rook on c8.
That knight could get trapped, but you'll
He has to
win for
go.
sure, bro.
Yeah. So after
It's a wild
take,
position.
the question is, can they trap your knight? Because if they cannot, then you just want an exchange. If they can,
Right.
then they get 2 pieces for a rook.
We'd have to try to get out on c2, right?
Yes, and there's no way
Okay.
to cover c2 or block it up. Like if they could play knight c3 or something, that they would block up your rook, but their pieces
Uh-huh.
are super awkward. So I think it does work out for black,
Interesting.
but much more complicated than the simple intermediate knight before. But it could also be a resource.
Mhm.
We could take a short look. B5, queen c2, rook c8.
Maybe also that would take like 5 minutes to calculate, so I don't know if that's good time
Most
management.
likely, but let's say you're in a classical game worth
Okay.
to calculate, and if you don't have knight before. So here, and I mean they have to move it. I'm not really counting this as a legitimate option. I suppose I
Hmm.
should actually.
That might be really good.
So here, and how are we doing with material?
I think we
Two
lost too
knights
much.
and this for a queen. So I think white is doing well here. Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns to 7 pawns. Wait, I miscount. 6 pawns to 7 pawns.
right.
So what do we even? What's our material count? 9 plus 5 plus 3. So
So you can highlight
7.
everything that's even when you're trying to figure out these weird
Okay.
imbalances. So this is even, and then pawns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're up a pawn as well. So pawn and queen, I'm gonna make it a
Okay.
different color. This is the imbalance,
Nice.
orange one.
Can you
Which is
do that
very
in an actual game? Like make the square orange?
yes. You just hold control on your keyboard.
Oh, nice.
When
Okay.
you right click normally, it's like this. When you you can make it different colors and whatnot.
That's handy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But positionally, I think black should be better just because their overall position is in ruins. Pawn
Okay.
structure is not a structure, just a bunch of pawns sprinkled everywhere. Your development is going to be nice and natural, while theirs is very blocked. Their king can never find safety on both sides. So I think I would rather take black, even though materially they are up a pawn. Plus
We might
one.
even win one back with like queen c7, maybe trying to like fork the pawn
Sure.
and knight. Okay. So
Yeah.
better to play black. So maybe it was fine here to play rook c8.
Yeah. So rook c8 also appears fine. Right. So b5 is definitely not a blunder. After queen c2, we have knight b4 or rook c8, both fine.
Okay. Okay.
Queen d1 was played. Let's see how the game went. Bishop g6, knight b3. No. Yeah,
I was
because
overly.
we played
Yeah, go
this.
ahead.
So I was gonna say if you didn't play this b5 after bishop g6, now they have some problems with development.
Ah,
Um, so this is, I guess, a little bit more important than I initially thought.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Um, b5, queen d1, bishop g6.
Pretty worried about knight c5 here.
Interesting. Why does that concern you?
Well, it's an outpost. It looks like a well-placed knight, and I don't think I want to trade the bishop for that knight because like he gets like a protected pass pawn. That's what I
Agreed.
was thinking. Okay.
Um, that goes off of the assumption that you must react.
Isn't the knight just
Why don't
good
you
there
just
though?
leave the knight? Why is that knight good?
Hmm. Well, I just assumed because it was kind of like deep in my territory and outposted that it would be good, but maybe it doesn't do anything.
That's a reasonable assumption, but people tend to overvalue outposts.
Huh. Okay.
Oftentimes, I beat 1800, 1900 players by giving them an outpost and nothing. I'm just playing around it basically
Hmm.
because the value of the outpost is very, how should I say that? It's not always incredible just because you have an outpost. So
Okay.
the point of an outpost is to maximize the efficiency of that piece because it's here permanently.
Okay.
So an outpost is a square which is defended by our pawns, by their pawns, cannot be defended by ours.
Yes.
So the fact that it cannot be attacked by our pawns means that it's there for a long time. And if it's there for a long time, the strategy should be to maximize the importance of the squares it's covering. In other
Right.
words, if they could cause a fight on e6, that knight would be tremendous there because
Okay.
it's
Maybe on
permanently
a6.
helping. Yes. So the reason I don't think this is such an amazing outpost is
Yeah.
because all of these squares seem completely useless to me.
Interesting.
So this, they're never going to come here. This, I have it rock solid. This one also. This, even if they come here, I just move away to one of these. Doesn't matter.
So could knight c5
And
and
I'm
like move
castling the other way.
like could the a6 pawn ever come under pressure with like maneuvering the queen to like a3, or is that just too abstract? I could just play like a5 or something.
Too abstract, and mostly for the reason that that's your area of the board again,
Hmm.
because of the pawn chains. So white should really be looking to play on this side of the board. So any sort of knight c5 for that reason as well doesn't really
Interesting.
concern me whatsoever. And even if they put a ton of pressure here, I don't even know
Yeah.
how. You said queen a3, but that pins the knight. Even
Oh,
if it doesn't, I could push the pawn. I could defend the pawn. Like I have so many ways to deal with that because
sure.
that's where my pieces find mobilization much easier. Because
Okay.
again, it's my area of the board. I have the extra space there, and so on. And my king is castling the other way. If I had to castle here for some reason, then that would be a little bit like over my head,
Yeah.
angling over my head and making me nervous. But in this case, I don't mind at all. So I would just continue bishop e7 and castle, like
Bishop,
ASAP development.
gotcha. Bishop e7 better than bishop e4 because I have the bishop pair?
Yes. So the strategy with the bishop pair is to just keep it until later, because in an end game it really shines. In the middle game and early opening stages, not really.
Yeah.
Um, and bishop b4 just seems to trade off your good bishop for their bad bishop. That's another thing to think about. Anytime you offer a bishop trade of any kind,
Right.
you have to think about, is that my good or bad bishop? And
I
it's,
forgot this was my good bishop.
yeah, exactly. So your pawns are light squared, so your dark square bishop is your good bishop.
Gotcha.
So
Although
this
I
is
feel
their
like
bad bishop.
my bishop on g6 seems pretty good. I guess I could get cramped, but I like the diagonal it's on. Like the
Definitely. Yeah.
e1, h7.
I would say that significantly contributes to your advantage, this guy. Because
So
not only does it look nice, but you're also covering this. I feel like the c2 square is very important, just
hmm,
intuitively, because we're gonna go rook c8, knight b4. Like that's our infiltration point. That's how we
I
get
didn't
in.
think of that idea.
Yeah. So to have that support over here means a lot. That's why this initial bishop b5, bishop c6 is so bad, because now this guy is completely uncontested.
Could I have, now that you mentioned that, could I have even played like, well, I don't know whose move it is here, but like knight b4 if it were my move here?
It is your move. You played queen b6 because you were scared of knight c5. Knight b4,
Yeah.
let's take a look. I think you can. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it, but I think they just maybe castle.
Castle, knight c2,
Knight
rook
c2, rook
b1.
b1. Do we have any good discoveries? Not really, which is a little bit surprising.
We play knight
No,
e3?
I suppose we could take here because the rook is undefended.
Hmm.
So maybe this works. Yeah, let me see. What's that thing here? Here, because their knights are very awkward. They're not doing anything to help out, really.
Yeah.
Uh, Knight b4.
I wonder if that just would win. Probably not. There's always like some resource.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it, but I'm trying to apply some pattern recognition because I've seen this type of stuff before, but usually the knight is on c3. And when I
Uh-huh.
calculate those patterns, it's like knight b4, castles knight c2, rook b1, and then the rook is defended, so there's no like knight takes d4, for example, because of takes, and then knight takes b1 at the end. But here the knight is on b3, which is a bit strange,
Wait,
so
so
that
normally
changes things.
normally white gets both minor pieces for the rook?
Correct. So it's good for
Okay.
white. But in this case, it seems like you're just winning an exchange. After knight b4, castles knight c2, they have to move, right? And then like
Dang.
I'm just giving my knight somewhere just to discover this. May as well take a pawn in the process.
Yeah.
I take with something. There's no way to trap my bishop. I'm just coming back next move. Oh, I'm
Yeah, so you
lying.
go
There it is. Bishop g5.
interesting.
The way I caught that is by catching what I just said. I was like, there's no way to
No way
attack
to
it. And then I
trap.
was like, oh, wait, discovery. So I guess the
Wait.
refutation is bishop g5.
Is that a refute? Is there something black
Let's
can
see.
do like instead, or is it just all forced moves?
It seems very forced.
Okay.
Was there a better way to give up the knight? I
What
don't.
about knight e3?
Bishop takes, and then this is defended instantly.
Oh, gotcha.
Right, yeah. I mean, maybe they can throw this in between, like, immediately. Bishop g5 first, and then instead of rook b1, they play rook c1. Yeah, this is even better for
What
white, it
about
seems.
is f6 an idea here?
f6 is an idea, but it seems very risky
Yeah.
because we're two moves away from castling, not just one.
But if we get an exchange, maybe it's worth it.
I don't know. I've seen so many of these where you give up a full rook and it just works out for white.
Hmm.
But we have to calculate concrete variations, of course. So let's see. What if how would white just break through completely here? Let's think. Maybe bishop h4 is a little bit too passive. So this and this is hanging. If I go, so let's say rook c1, take. If I get two pieces for rook, but I lost a piece at the start.
Hmm.
Big attack though.
Yeah, that might be pretty
Wow.
good.
There's many angles to look at this from. I could just move my bishop away somewhere. I could move my rook somewhere. I could just ignore both of those and just attack e6, which is like a major target right now because we
True.
need the f pawn. And it's lining up to this king as
But
well.
rook, what would
Very
you, how
hard
would
to
you
say.
attack? Rookie one would drop the rook, right?
It would drop the exchange, but I'm already losing an exchange basically. So
Okay.
I'm thinking, do I just give it in another way? to gain a tempo here on the attack. Really hard. I would have to calculate this for like a long time.
Do you think the engine
Um,
would like black here? I feel like it might.
It might because engines are insanely good at defending.
Yeah, but
Like
then I might lose this
I'm expecting
position.
some King F7 type moves with the engine. Like,
Oh,
oh, I'm just holding onto these pawns. There's nothing you could do.
yeah.
Something like that. But
Anyways, what was the conclusion from this?
so knight b4 has a serious chance of working, but it's
Okay.
risky because you're possibly risking your entire advantage here.
I two questions.
Yes.
Well, how much do you think my advantage is right here? Because I didn't think I was really better. I was like, this is about
Really?
equal.
Hmm. I would take black any day here. I'm thinking to maybe to put it into like engine evaluation, I would say minus one, 1 point,
-1. That's
minus 1.2
why.
or something.
Is it the exposed H3 G4 pawns? Because I thought that was part of like its plan.
That was a part of it, but that doesn't contribute too much.
Huh.
My main reasoning for that is that the fact that I'm
Yeah.
seeing that I can quickly play bishop e7 castles and
Okay.
f6.
F6. Okay.
This f6 because first of all I have the bishop pair, so I want to open it up as much as possible to abuse
Okay.
that bishop pair. And the second thing is another reason why I want to open it up after castling, not before, is because of these. So the way to
Ah.
punish this, because we previously said, oh, this is okay for white because the center is closed. If the
Ah.
center is wide open, this is always like way too weakening. So I'm
Okay.
looking at a combination of these moves, and I think that would give me a great advantage. And I'm not seeing too much value in this knight c5. Their
Hmm.
development appears slow, and even when they do it, they're not very safe.
Hmm.
I don't like white's position at all, just
That's
intuitively. I don't know.
that's really interesting. I was just not thinking about an F6 pawn break at all. I
Mhm.
mean, I should have thought I was better though with the like two really good bishops, I guess. I guess maybe I was
Right.
overly focused on knight c5 as being like really strong, but it
Could be,
doesn't do
could be.
anything.
So you overvalued knight c5, and you didn't correctly evaluate your bishop pair because I think you said bishop b4 you played.
I don't did I
I
play
think
that? Ooh,
we talked
I
about
hope I
bishop
didn't play that.
b4. I'm not sure if that was one of your ideas or you played it. But yeah, the point is you have the bishop pair. This is nothing concrete, and you're going to blast open the position in multiple ways. Maybe you're going to have some h5 ideas. I don't know.
Uh,
That could be interesting. But the main part, the main thing to watch out for is that when you have this structure, the French slash Caro-Kann structure,
mhm.
the main breaks are the c5, which you do very early, and you're supposed to, and the secondary break is this f6. Remember that
Hmm.
one? Usually done
Okay.
after castling, so you don't get into any trouble, and your rook is there to support that break.
I think
But
this was
notice,
the bot that.
sorry.
Oh, you go, you go.
So I was just going to say, when you have the rook on f8, after that break, either he takes you or you take him, and then your rook is also going to x-ray that knight, further exploiting the weakness of g4.
Okay.
So these are just going to be targets.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was thinking like I often encounter these positions in like the advanced Caro because of like playing c5 and like putting pressure on the d4 pawn. So I feel like this is a common structure. So knowing f6
Mm.
is probably useful for me.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So let's see how you played it out. So let's
Right.
see how you do. I'm guessing queen b6 or something.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, queen b6. Bishop b3, bishop b4 check.
Oh
Fortunate. I mean,
God.
at the very least, they play a3. You're going to have to go back. Um,
Yuck.
I think bishop d2 was better, no? I suppose this sets free the f pawn, so it makes some sense as well. Okay. Bishop b4 played, so you're trying to get some attack
I thought
going, but
I thought he had to play or like I thought he had to either move the rook or play f3. If he played f3, I was gonna play what was I gonna play? Oh, bishop takes d2, and I thought he had to take with the queen, but I guess he could just take with the knight and then doesn't even do anything.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, unfortunate.
But just bishop e4 is probably a really bad move here.
Not necessarily, simply because it's not punishable. They can't like get anything concrete out of it. So it's just a waste of time. That's all it is. Like you had better moves. So it's not
Okay.
like a mistake officially or anything, but you just have better resources, more useful things to do. For example, the main thing I'm seeing now is again this h5.
Huh.
And this is useful for a couple of reasons. Can you identify those reasons? Why do you think I would like this move very much?
Um, we're threatening to open up the h8 rook. G4 is a hook, so it's oftentimes good to like attack a hook. I think that he can play G5 and close the position though.
Yeah, that is correct. It's a legitimate option. But for some reason, I really don't mind him playing g5.
Interesting.
Two different reasons.
So I don't think that's necessarily overextending because I feel like all his pieces are developed pretty much, or almost all the way developed. Um,
Okay.
and if I drop back to like e7 with my bishop, it's already defended. He can easily like cover it with like rook g1, I feel like. Um, would I want to play h4?
Um, oh, like h5, g5, h4? Not
Yeah.
really.
All right. All right.
I don't see much benefit in that.
Is there like a tactical reason why that just fails?
No, both of my reasons are strategical. But one has to do with what White's intentions are and how G5 messes up those intentions. Do you remember White's long-term plan?
I think it was f4, f5.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So
Oh,
H5, G5. Notice F4, F5 cannot be played ever in their life.
that's awesome.
The foundation of that plan was having this G4 as a protector. So we're
Hmm.
dislodging their plan, number one, very important.
Okay.
Uh, so I'm thinking that they can never do this because we have it covered sufficiently. And number
Okay.
two is another strategic pattern. And I like that you said the word overextending. It's not overextending because but actually remember every pawn move weakens the squares it was previously protecting.
Okay.
Right now, this is protecting h5 and f5. And
Okay.
f5 is a super important square, not just for their plan, but after they play g5, together with e5, this is the pattern you have to know. So this is like a higher level pattern, but these
Okay.
two must be like this or like this. It's like a knight's move away. That way they remain covering,
Okay.
at least one of them remains covering f5. If they both go forward like this,
Yeah.
f5 becomes an outpost.
Ah, interesting. Speaking of outposts.
Yes.
So now,
And
would that be
with
a good outpost, or would that just be an irrelevant outpost like C5?
uh, the quality of the outpost depends on how much you can cause play on the squares that we're protecting using the outpost.
Okay.
That sounds very fancy, but I'm going to put it into simpler terms.
I think
So
I know what you mean.
when we said knight c5, notice how I pointed out these squares that the knight was covering on c5, and I said, oh, these are nothing special, therefore the outpost isn't very good.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the same thing here. These squares, do you find anything useful there?
I think the D4 point is like a notorious weakness of this opening, so I think that would be really
Exactly.
good to have pressure. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So purely because we're covering d4, maybe there's some utility in covering the bishop to stop f-pawn moves or something, but mainly for
Yeah.
d4. I think that's really
Okay.
good. And now
Okay.
a reasonable question is to say, oh, I'm already covering that. Why would I not just stay here? But there's more
Sure.
utility here because you're covering also other perhaps important things. Here, you're tied down to this, nothing else. E5, we're never really breaking through until we take care of d4. These squares are going to be covered by them. So I think f5 is a better square than c6 for multiple reasons. One of those being also the c file.
Yeah, I was
So
thinking the
I
C
really
file.
like the idea of 97 knight f5, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And the bishop would be kind of dumb on F5 because it's just hitting like one pawn.
Yeah. There's going to play h4 to connect with this probably.
Okay.
So I don't see too much value in this.
Cool.
But yeah, the main part is that you stop them from playing f5. The secondary part is that you have this outpost for later. That's not your main plan right now, because, for example, if you play 97 now, that's a blunder because that was your bishop's retreat square, basically. So you don't lose it because luckily you could trade it here, but we don't really want to trade off our bishop pair. So not immediately, but further down the line, that's going to be a good plan. That's a
So I
permanent
should have put my
outpost.
bishop on E7. Well, if it were an E7, I guess it would be congesting the knight's path, but I feel like that we talked
Right.
about that being a better place for it.
Yeah. No, generally it is because it supports the f6 break as well as we talked about. But now that it's already here, I'm saying that I really like this plan for this reason as well. So first, I would continue by canceling, of course, then double up on the C file.
Hmm.
So still continue with queenside play for the most part, and maybe incorporate pressure on D4 with this. Try
Nice.
to push these pawns. I really like this position for black. So I'm
Hmm.
expecting -1.5 about.
It's
You
really
can
fun.
give it a guess as well, just for fun, and then we're gonna turn it on and see who's
For
closer.
this position,
Yeah, right now, let me see whose move it is. So they just played G5. I'm saying it's about 1.5, -1.5.
I don't think it's that much. I would just say -1.
-1. Okay. Let's see who's
Well, I guess
closer.
that's a big advantage.
Sorry?
That's still a big advantage.
Yeah, both of those are very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you said like literally -1.5, didn't you?
Yes.
That's really close.
With a combination of it says a5 castle or queen b7. Okay, I don't really understand queen b7, but a5 and castling were part of my plan. Okay, very nice. I mean, it doesn't matter. Even if it says -1, I would really, this is just for fun.
Yeah, that's a good guess though.
Good stuff. Okay. The game continued. Bishop e4. Castles. Bishop g6. Okay, you admit your mistake. You don't give up your bishop pair. A lot of players would give up the bishop pair just to like say, "Oh, bishop e4 was a good move." So like,
Oh,
don't get your ego to get the better of you. Like you gotta admit your mistake sometimes, which is something
still
I'm happy about.
okay. It still felt really bad to play that. I was like, well, good thing I played bishop e4. Then
Right.
move it back to g6.
Yeah. But it's instructive. So now you realize, oh shit, that really was a mistake. Okay, we move on. Hopefully that doesn't demoralize you during the game too much.
I don't think it was that necessarily. It just felt like I didn't have a clear plan and I didn't feel like I was better and I didn't know what to do. So I was just kind of aimless and he had a clear plan and he just crushed me.
Okay, yeah. We're gonna see, but the reason I'm guessing f4, f5 is what you got hit by because everything
Yep.
has been prepared for that. But this is a clear example of what we said earlier. So you just wasted a lot of time with this. It's not like any of your moves were officially blunders,
Right.
any singular move. It's more like your entire strategy shows that you didn't really know what was happening in the structure. So
Yeah,
as soon
exactly.
as I see the pawn structure, I'm like, oh, f6 break or queenside expansion. Like
Oh, okay.
clear
Okay.
ideas.
Yeah.
Which from now on you will know. So that's awesome, obviously. That's why we got to do these game analysis as much as possible. They tend to be the most destructive.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. So
so
helpful.
awesome. We're going to take a look how it happened here. So once they go f4, get their clear
Yeah.
ideas f5.
Now
So
I
we have
think
a couple ways to handle it. Let's see.
would you say white is clearly better here or not? No.
I don't remember saying that.
I'm just wondering. I don't think you said it. I'm just curious.
Oh,
I would say white's clearly better.
I would say that, yeah, because
Okay.
the previous thing, like out of all the previous claims at advantage, the only one you have left is bishop pair. All
Okay.
their other problems have been solved. Like they
Interesting.
solved the development very nicely, I would say.
Yeah.
They have a ton of space, clear plan. I think it's again to play the same evaluation game. I would say
Okay.
plus. Let's see. It depends on concrete variations, of course, as well. So let me calculate some little bit of concrete variations, a little bit of f6,
What?
f5, h6, h5. Let's
Oh.
see here. Takes castles. F5. Okay, I'm gonna go with plus 1.7.
Jesus. Is that because there's a concrete reason you calculate me losing a pawn or something, or is it just
Maybe.
oh I'm just trying to go independent of what you said. Is it black to move here?
Yes, they just played f4. It's your
I think
move.
white might be okay after like bishop d3 and like I'm gonna think it's like plus 0.5.
All right. Um, my calculation was I did consider bishop d3 as well, but I thought just rook f2, and that doesn't really solve the main power of this isn't necessarily trapping your bishop.
Oh.
It's more about the fact that they just make progress, open up the bishop, and they're trying to basically either kill your king or go f6, which is even more of a problem. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
takes, and you have this pawn on f6 forever, which you just can't deal with. So they just
We,
sneak a queen and then checkmate, stuff like that. Okay, let's take a look. So I said plus 1.7, you said plus 0.5.
mhm. Whoa.
Oh, well done.
I mean,
Nice.
equal? What the fuck?
Okay, I wasn't
Oh,
expecting equal, to be honest with you.
so bishop d3. I had a hunch I should play this in the game, but I thought it was kind of pointless, so I didn't. But
Equal. Okay, that's indicative of like a concrete variation.
rook
Okay,
f3.
already the second move and the third move are plus 0.8. Wow. Okay.
Right.
So let's take a quick look because there must be something concrete. H5. Really?
Well, that was your idea.
Huh. Yeah, but I feel like it worked better before because before they had to play G5 basically. Right now they don't. They could just stay here, take stakes, and continue with their plan. Wow.
Guess we have an open file at least, something.
Hmm. Interesting. All right. We're still in it. Let's see.
Well, I didn't play bishop d3.
Yeah, it's not the easiest of moves to play because it's also undefended and there's a discovery staring at you. So I understand.
Mm.
But let's see. H6.
Kind of like panicky, dumb
Uh,
move.
ooh, take on F5. Interesting.
Oh, I didn't have to take. I I didn't consider
Did you
not taking.
assume that you have to? Okay,
Yeah, that's dumb.
gotcha. Because again, you're not trading this for that. You're trading this for this, and the
Trading
G4
that.
pawn is more in the way of their queen and Rook G1 and whatnot.
That would have been a really good comparison to just consider, like, which ones am I trading for which?
Right, right. That's what I mean. Like this is one of the most common misconceptions in trading. It's like I'm going to trade this pawn for this pawn. This trade would be amazing, but that's not happening. If you could just
Mm,
pick these up with your hand and throw them off the board, that would be amazing. Like your bishop is nice and safe, open diagonal over here, but you're
I
trading
guess
this
we're
for this.
we're,
So
we're
these ones
picking up the G
stay.
pawn and the E pawn.
Yeah, we're trading these, and then their e
That's
pawn becomes
disgusting.
mobile again. That's also another serious consideration, so they can keep breaking it down. So
So
I don't
if
think
I
this
had
is correct.
if I had played Bishop H7, maybe the lesser of two evils is he opens up the F file with like takes.
Right. So I'm thinking probably bishop h7 is better because you give him two options. Either he takes or he pushes. If he pushes f6,
Yeah,
we take and bishop d6, and we close down the f file. It's not the prettiest position of the world, but it's fine. So let's
seems
see.
playable.
Here, 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 here. And the main point is that you haven't castled. If you have castled already, you're dead lost. You're about to get checkmated in a few moves as soon as they like reroute the queen. But you haven't castled, which is
Okay.
great. That's why
Do
a
we
lot
care
of
that
stronger players delay castling.
do we care that the H6 pawn is hanging? Is that relevant here?
I'm thinking that we probably just discovered the attack
Discovered.
here.
Okay.
Again, bishop d3 probably here. If they do a
Hmm.
counter attack, we do a counter attack.
And they take the knight, the bishop with the knight.
And again, two pieces are hanging. So I'm thinking this is probably good enough. Oh,
Interesting.
counter attack. Watch out. Um,
Okay, so then
but
then
then we have maybe like this, and long castle. Attack here.
hmm.
They have to go
How much
bishop
material did
g7.
we give up for this?
So far, we traded a pair of rooks and a pair of minor pieces. So it's just
Oh,
a trade. But look at the pressure we have on d4 with all four of our pieces, like bishop d4, e5, sorry, bishop e5. We're just hitting d4 a million times. They can't take us the pin and the other pin.
interesting.
The king is wide open. This bishop doesn't really do anything because our king is on the other side. I'm not sure
So
if this is like such a complex position to evaluate. There's too many dynamic factors happening at the same time. So we would need to calculate further variations to make a close to objective conclusion here.
so the
Maybe
original point
bishop e5 is not.
was that the bishop taking on H6 was probably fine for us. We thought maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
Which again deserves a lot of calculation and attention. Um, so bishop h7, and if they take, we just take back, and yeah, we can't castle, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue because we could castle the other way, or we can even play king d7 sometimes
Yeah, I
because
ended up
the
castling
center is
long,
very
maybe
close.
because the details were different. That's why I got in trouble, but I
Mm.
didn't feel comfortable castling long with my pawns pushed and like the open C file.
Mm. Another reason why I don't feel comfortable castling is because you give them rook f7
Oh,
infiltration, whereas your king is covering that now.
that was a
So
nasty idea later in the game.
oh, it happened. Okay, we're gonna see that. But it was
Well,
very interesting because sometimes you can leave your king here. A lot of players castle because they quote unquote have to castle. But
right.
how does your king get in trouble here? Like this is an open diagonal, but there's no queen h5 ever.
Okay.
Um, this is under our control, so there's no stuff like this. This is that closed.
Hmm.
Like your king is fine on e8. Maybe you just play rook f8, contest the open file like that.
Hmm.
If they take, you
Hmm.
go king f8 and then king g8 manually,
Right, that's pretty cool.
basically. So as long as you control the openness of the center, how open or closed it is, as long as that's under
Right.
your control and they don't have like a million pawn breaks to change it, then
Hmm.
your king is fine.
I feel like that was an important point of this game is how like dead locked up the center was like the whole game.
Right. So you have to adjust and say, okay, my king is actually fine here. Because sometimes this will decrease your king safety.
Yeah, I think it did.
The point of castling in chess, the whole purpose behind why it's a thing, is because usually the center gets blasted open, at least one of the
Yeah.
files, and then your king gets under a lot of fire. But this is a clear example of the opposite. Like the center is dead closed, so your king is
Right.
actually completely fine. There's no need to castle.
Hmm.
So that's what a lot of chess improvers get wrong, where they hear a thing that you have to do, like castling or any chess principle, but they don't understand the context behind it. They don't know when to apply it, which also means that they don't know when to break it. So this is a clear example of breaking it in my eyes.
Gotcha.
So I would literally just continue like nothing happened. B4. I don't know.
Right, right.
Something like
Hmm.
this. Pretty cool. So that's why I think bishop h7 is much better than the alternative, but let's see how the game played out. Because now the center is not that closed anymore. This is mobile.
I feel
Can
like
go
the F5 and E5 pawns were monsters, just like I don't
yeah,
know, bearing down on me. It
you
was
never know
really
which
not.
one is going to push. So you have to be prepared for both, which is very difficult.
Yeah,
I
my
can
bishop's
envision some
blocked
queen
in.
h5 right now, maybe. I don't know. Tough to play. Here.
Yeah, and then I just castled, and it's kind of dumb because it's like, well, maybe castling makes sense with the pawn structure like that, I guess.
Yeah, right now I think you have to castle this way.
Why is that?
Um, because the alternatives are worse. Suddenly,
Okay.
because of these the position completely changed because of these
Yeah.
pawns not being here anymore. So the
Okay.
center is no longer safe because at any
Yeah.
point they could combine these or play one of them with devastating
Okay.
effect. And
Okay.
castling short I thought was safe optically because of this.
Uh-huh.
But I see that f6 is just game over basically. So it's your
Yeah.
move now. Yeah, it's your move. Castle's f6. You have to take it because if they take, I mean, same thing. The
Right.
g7 pawn will no longer be here. They take you take them, doesn't matter. Let's say something like this, and I mean,
It's like a lobster pincer. Yeah.
okay, we don't lose immediately, but you get the point. This is uncomfortable as hell.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks
Uh,
terrible.
So for the reason of f6 purely, I don't want to castle short. So I think this is the best. It is the open c file, so again, not absolutely safe, but compared to the other ones, it's better. And we could play manually, king b7, king b8, finds shelter somewhere here. So it's best out of the given choices. King
I think
b8,
white's much better still though at this point, right?
yes. Do you want
Like
another
plus
round of
two.
the evaluation game?
Well, I think it's plus two.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I was also gonna say +2, but I'm gonna go
Uh,
optimistic 2.5.
okay. Okay. I believe that too. Oh, wait. Yeah, you win. Oh, maybe.
Uh, okay,
That's
well,
even.
we're calling it that a tie. It's changing its mind because it's depth here. If it was bigger depth, it would change again. Okay,
Hmm.
good game. King b8,
So
c5.
now the night. So now is this a good outpost?
Now it became a very good outpost. Yes,
Okay, it's
because
really
these
funny.
squares have increased in relevance a lot. For
Okay.
example, this square previously was useless. Right now, it's very important. If you play rook c8, that's a blunder because of an 87 fork. So your rook is
Yeah.
tied down to defending this.
Right. Right.
Queen is tied down to this. This is just a nice square next to your king. E6 is
Hmm.
going to become important because it's going to defend e6 as the pass pawn. When this
Right.
goes e6 takes,
Oh,
there's going to be a
so this is a
defender pass
monster
pawn.
night.
So now it's by far the best piece on the board suddenly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So the context is very important. Pretty cool. One thing I also want to point out, king b8, I'm very happy that you played instead of king b7. A lot of players would go, oh, optically, I'm safer because it's closer. But this just runs into more checks in the near future. This comes with
Hmm.
check on b7, whereas king b8 is safer. So props for that. And
I'm
later, I'm
not sure
thinking
if I consider that or not. I can't remember.
if you did, great. If not, you got
Okay.
lucky. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
But it's objectively the better choice.
Okay.
Knight c5, rook hg8. We got to open
It,
that up
I'm
somehow.
just like, what the fuck do I do? Like, I don't think this is actually promising, but I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's your best chance, practically speaking.
Okay.
Um, and the way you open this up is first f6 and then g6,
Hmm.
provided you have time, because a lot of players make the mistake of like, oh, I'm going to offer a pawn trade
Right.
and
He just
hope that he
pushes.
takes, but yeah, he pushes. So a little bit of pawn play is necessary. So first we fix the pawn in place, and then it can't run away when we break it properly.
Gotcha.
B4, solidifying the outpost, makes sense. uh, Seven. One thing worth
Yeah.
mentioning. I want to ask, did you consider bishop takes c5 at all?
Not after he played b4, because I just assumed like the pawn structure would be oppressive, like after he recaptured.
What do you think he will recapture with? That's the interesting question.
Oh, yeah, I didn't consider it.
Because everything has an argument, but
Right, right,
I
right.
want
I'm
to see how you
thinking
think.
okay, I feel like d takes c5 is better for black because it gives like a d4 idea.
Sure. Not
But
immediately
actually that's
because
yeah,
tempo, but yeah.
kind of abstract. So maybe he just gains the tempo on the queen and I like play like queen a7 and then he can play like queen d3 maybe and just stop that completely.
Queen d3. You have a knight takes e5, and you have d4 anyway, because we have the rook and knight covering that. So I think it works anywhere, regardless of queen d3. So I agree, d takes e4 is the best for d takes e5 is the best for black. So
Okay.
between b takes or rook takes, what is best for white?
Oh, I didn't think about rook. Rook takes looks actually maybe devastating because you're just piling up on the open file.
Well done. Yeah. So your initial instinct may have been pawn takes, one of the pawn takes. Doesn't matter which
Yeah.
one. I mean, it matters as
Interesting.
we saw, but it's super interesting that the rook takes becomes the best. Again, the context completely changed. So you have this pawn takes in your mind because previously, way back here, when they first
Oh,
threatened this, where was this? You were like, oh, they have to take back the pawn. So that's why notice you went d takes c first before b takes c. So I think this was stuck in your mind from the very opening
it's
because you were like,
possible.
after 95, they have to take with the pawn. So back way later, when they have a choice here, it's a bit harder to catch rook takes,
I didn't even
as a
consider
result of
rook
that.
takes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But now that
that's
you see it, it's
interesting.
like clearly the best choice because they're just going to stack up very simply. And I
Yeah.
don't think we can hold all of this with a4 coming as a pawn break. Oh my goodness. No way we hold
So
that.
so maybe my move king a7 was kind of dumb and pointless. Maybe I could have played f6 and gone for my idea.
You have to go for your idea. Any move that you spent on this side of the board is a move that you don't spend here, obviously, which means that
Yeah.
your counter attack will be slower, and that's the only thing you can rely on to stop this. You can never fully stop your opponent's attack in opposite side castling.
Oh, yeah.
Almost
I
never.
was
Of course, there are exceptions, but you can
so king
count on.
a7 is like a terrible move based on the idea of just it's insanely slow and it just waits for him to checkmate me, basically.
Yeah, terrible is a bit of a harsh word, but yeah, you get the point. It's a wasted move.
Okay.
I
Okay.
would much rather have f6 because there's going to be a line in the future where you're missing one move, and that might be because you played a bit of a slow move here instead of a fast one.
Gotcha.
So f6, which also comes with tempo because you're threatening to just open up the center and whatnot,
Interesting.
to switch the focus of the play from your king to literally something else.
Yeah.
And
It's
also,
like a feisty move. I like it.
yes. Now, what I'm wondering is f6 one of the top engine choices or what the engine wants here? Maybe f6 is a blunder because of like takes and bishop f4 check or something. I don't know. So I
Huh.
want to see if f6 is up there. I'm very curious.
Oh, it
Bishop
might be a
takes
blunder.
5. Wow, that's very surprising. He just allows rook takes c5.
Rook takes c5.
Wow, and then 97. Playing for f5. Okay, I want to see why f6 fails because this would have been my move.
a4.
a4, 96,
So,
or knight db3. Completely ignoring everything. Very impressive. Okay,
but I don't
knight
know
db3,
that that
g6.
means I feel like practically against someone my level, f6 would have been a really good move.
For sure, even against my level, I think.
Hmm.
Like against a human, they would humans are very reactive. Like so they're like, oh, I have to do something about this, most likely.
Interesting.
It's very hard to just ignore somebody, even though most of the time in opposite side castling, ignoring your opponent is the best thing you could do.
Hmm.
But it's hard for humans to do that. So let's just follow this line for a little bit, because I'm not convinced that we don't have anything here.
Okay.
Six, he takes F. What? This is not clear to me at all. Okay, discovery. King H1 or 2. 1 is better. Okay.
I would have loved this position.
This seems much more comfortable than what we started
Yeah,
with.
like I actually have play here with an open file and like
Yeah,
mobile
exactly.
pawns. Yeah.
Engine, what are you doing? Let's take a look. I need a few more moves for the engine to convince me here. So let's say King A7 now, going to the knight's weird square. Always good.
Yeah. Weird. Okay.
86. Okay. Queen E6. Like, okay, he's attacking here, putting some pressure here.
It also gives the
Oh,
d4 pawn
Queen
up.
F7 was also a threat. Oh my. My rooks are just completely blind to this and this and wow.
So if I play something like rook g7, he just takes the bishop. Is that the idea?
Yeah, he's starting to just whip this one off and we don't have any immediate responses. And
And
if
if we take on
the only way
d4,
to can we cover I guess we cover both of those with like rook F8 or something? No, because this rook is tied down to D7, whereas this
oh,
rook is on the open file, so that basically loses our attack. Wow.
say that,
Okay.
say that one more time. I missed that.
So my idea was like
Yeah.
I noticed that their idea was like either take my bishop or queen f7 fork
Okay, taking the bishop.
of these two. Yeah. So I
H.
noticed that both of these ideas are on the same
Hmm.
file. So I was like, oh, one of my rooks can cover that because rooks
Sure.
move in a straight line. And I was like, which one?
Oh,
And
then
then
you get forked.
I thought like this, but yeah, 97 is a fork.
Okay.
Whereas rook g f8 just goes away from the open file, so I can't claim any counterattack chances. I'm just
Gotcha.
purely defensive, which is very interesting. So notice how the outpost is important because of this d7. Now it's actually in a concrete variation. Previously,
What
it was just
about,
like nice control, but
do we not like bishop takes d4 for some tactical reason? Oh, maybe we just get forked anyway.
bishop takes d4. e4, I thought. Let's see.
Queen f7?
Yeah, queen f7 should be good enough. Because we're just taking a pawn. We're not threatening anything, but this is just like a concrete fork. So bishop d4, queen f7, king a8, and they just take here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, our pieces look active, but they're actually really not. Our queen is basically almost out of moves. Knight is barely holding on here. This is defensive against these squares. So only our rook is in the attack, maybe our bishop as well.
Still way better than what happened in the game.
Sure. And I'm not sure how many players spot queen e6 from way back here.
Yeah.
In order to comfortably go e takes f, like to allow the discover check, allow
There's no
everything
way.
so that they have queen e6. No fucking way.
They're never allowing g takes
A
f5.
human doesn't play this way, I think. Unless they're like super high rated and calculate extremely concrete variations, but
And cheating. I'm just kidding.
yeah, so okay, you play king a7. So I think f6 with g6 was a much better attempt. But they play e6, okay. Yeah, now our g pawn doesn't have a trade here,
Do you think
unfortunately.
I had to take that one, or could I have like considered pushing and not, or just leaving it alone?
I quickly looked at g6, but when they take, they hit your rook.
Right.
So that comes with temp. So g6, this, and I have to play something with the rook. This is not a discovery because they take the piece giving the check.
Yeah.
So
Rook
rook g7
g7?
or something, but that gets forked by f6.
Oh. Okay.
So I quickly considered this, but it doesn't work out. So I think we have to take this one, which is a little bit sad.
Yeah. Why did I play that? I was worried about rook f7, I think.
Right, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, your bishop is better on f6 than on e7, so I didn't really
Well, I really wanted to play b5. Sorry, g5.
g5. Oh, okay.
But I
It's
just
going to be
thought,
a long time. The only way to reopen this is
yeah.
to go g4, g5. But first, you have to avoid them playing h4. So you have to fix the pawn in play, just like we mentioned.
Why?
When you want to force open a file, you fix the target in place, block
Okay.
it, and then break it. Because otherwise, you go g4. I
Yeah.
play something. You go you go g5, you go g4.
You
Then they
just
play
keep pushing it.
h4.
Okay.
They play h4, and they're going to give you the pawn just to keep the file closed.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
Okay.
you might push forward. They're just going to block it at some point with something.
Gotcha.
Queen is not the best blocker, but it's the only one they have right now. And they should be fine. And by the time you get this in, they're going to do some crazy stuff here. A4 is in one move, happening in one move. Rook A1, line up to your king.
Jesus.
Takes here. Jesus. It all comes with tempo as well.
This is
With
such a
music.
disaster.
It comes with music, as my old coach used to say.
With music.
Yes. So
Why is that with music?
I don't know, but it sounds nice.
Does sound good.
95. Let's turn this off. 95. Take. Yeah,
Oh,
as
I wanted
soon as
to
you have to take this,
I wanted to play knight takes d4, but I think he had a discovery on my queen or something.
knight is d4, bishop takes. Yeah, I mean, any
Bishop
type
takes
of
f5.
discovery here seems devastating.
Okay.
Could you have avoided taking here? I feel like more resilient would be to just like play, I don't know, knight like somewhere
Anywhere.
out of the way.
I didn't actually
Or
see
actually,
that there was a discovery on my king with the bishop, I think was my problem or something.
okay, that's the issue then, because that was like my main thing. Your king safety is number one right now in opposite side castling. In opposite side
Uh,
castling, when you're behind in the attack, so it's a race who attacks first.
right.
And when you're behind, you have to take some defensive measures.
Okay.
So your king is your main. Where right now I'm seeing actually an opportunity to go bishop takes, so that against pawn takes I have d4
Dude, that's sick. I like it.
covering that.
Bishop
And I think
f4
that
maybe?
gets a lot of counter. I'm looking at rook f7 counter attack. First thing to look at.
Oh, I think that might have been why I didn't play that. That
But
feels
97 perhaps holds. I mean, you're either barely holding or dead lost. There's no in between. I think you're
well, I was
dead
dead
lost
lost after the other
because after
variation.
rook f7, 97, there's knight d7, cutting off this. This is a discovery. This is hanging, cutting off this as well. Like this just throws a bomb between all of our coordination,
Yeah, that looks
and
really
it's a
good.
discovery. Like, so that must be dead lost.
But what if I just give up the queen for the rook? Oh, that's just lost too. Okay.
Yeah, unfortunate. Damn. So not even bishop take. Okay. What about so you play knight takes, d takes, and then king
What is he
a8.
threatening? Like, did I have to even do anything? Could I just play like b5?
You have to defend your bishop right now. So there
Like,
you capture.
sorry, like before, like I'm just thinking, like as you pointed out, taking that knight seems retarded. Like maybe I could have just played G5 instead of taking the knight.
Oh,
Like
here.
earlier.
Gotcha.
Here.
Yeah,
Like, is he
yeah.
threatening anything? Maybe knight takes queen takes and
Um,
discovery on my queen.
He's threatening to move this one because that would be a devastating pin which you can't defend.
Uh,
So like
why
let's
not?
say knight b3 or something. How do you defend this one?
Like rook d6,
Rook d6. Oh,
queen
right.
queen
Fair.
c2.
Knight a5. They can pile up on it much easier than you can defend, is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha, gotcha.
So queen c2, knight b3, knight a5. That falls for sure.
Okay, so I had to take it.
So let's say you play nothing, just to illustrate.
Yeah.
Knight b3, I'm guessing, to be able to go here. So you say rook d6. Knight a5 should be good enough. Yeah, there's no way to add it.
If I take the knight on e5, what's the deal?
Discovery.
Oh, gotcha.
And pawn takes rook. There's too much pressure on your position, and these pieces are just not playing the game,
Okay.
which is unfortunate. If you sink a bishop on this bishop comes to c4, you are 100% fine. But that's obviously going to be very hard or impossible.
So that's why I should have played it way earlier.
Yeah. That's why bishop d3 was perhaps so powerful. Another reason why it could have been. Okay, game continues like this. King a8 getting out of the discovery. Very good. Knight
Very good.
a6, not quite enough to save the position, but best you have, I think.
I thought if I get in queen g3, then I might be okay, but no luck.
It's a good try. King b8, queen
Yeah.
b5, c8, and we got here. Cool. Valiant effort.
That was brutal. That was brutal.
But very instructive in numerous positions. So first
Yeah,
with just to
it's been
recap the
almost
whole game.
it's been almost an hour on one game. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, that's high level analysis for you.
There you go.
But very good because there was so many takeaways at once. So first takeaway, we're going to recap the whole game now.
Yeah.
First takeaway was that not always a counterattack is better than a defense. So it's like 95% of the time, this is one of the 5% where you actually remind them to fix one of their problems in the position. This queen
Got
should
it.
be seen as a bad piece, not a good one. If this
I think this
were a good piece, then b5 would make a lot of sense.
was also kind of an ego move where I was like, oh, look at me. I have like this tactic, So that's
Fair enough. But you
kind of
saw how it
dumb.
helps them because, like, after bishop g6, there's a serious chance they play knight b3. It's one of the most logical moves. How else do they untangle
Right.
this bishop? So
Yeah.
you're creating some serious room for a logical mistake, which is always
That would
great.
have been awesome.
Yeah. So that was the first moment. And then moment number two was this knight b4. We just came to the conclusion that it's very interesting, but we didn't really see too much advantage in it. And then this was all fine. Then we said bishop pair, don't trade off your bishop. So bishop e7 is usually better.
Mhm.
Oh, before that, a knight c5 is not a worry. The quality of the outpost depends on how good the squares are that it's covering.
Mhm.
So yeah, bishop e7 here, just castle as soon as possible, and f6. As soon as you can, break it open, and you will probably be at a development advantage if they play more of these double moves with the same piece and stuff like that. And at that point, this will be punishable because the center will no longer be closed. So
I think
we learned
f6
the value of f6.
was a key idea that I didn't consider. Like if I had considered that, I would have just played bishop e7, castled, and been like a normal person and just played like normal moves.
Yeah, it's a very sound, stable strategy
Yeah.
that you can use pretty much always. Right, that's the one. And then four here. And then it's here instead of this bishop e4, a much more reliable way to continue was h5. Again, notice how I'm putting a lot of value on pawn breaks in general,
Why
whereas
is
you're
that?
mostly relying on pieces. Pawn breaks are much more reliable, as we saw. So we saw those f6
Reliable.
variations a little bit. We saw those h5 variations right now. We talked about the sideline, where if they go g5, you have the monstrous square here later, and you stop their main idea, which is what caused you all those problems. Right now, you just play on the queen side easily, and they have no counterplay. No easy counterplay anyway. I'm sure they're going to find
Sure.
some way to rear out something. But your plans are very straightforward, whereas theirs are nowhere to be found.
So you're saying that the pawn breaks are reliable in terms of plans, or they're reliable because like they're also
Yes, in
committal,
terms
aren't
of
they?
plans.
Okay,
They
okay.
are. So you want to make sure you have the correct one. Basically, because if you do the wrong pawn break, that could also be very bad for your position. For
Okay.
example, what would be a wrong pawn break here? Let's see.
Like they all look
So
good.
for white, a wrong pawn break would be a4, for example, because that's your area of the board.
Got it. Got it.
We could quickly see how that falls apart completely. So let's say I just
Sure.
castle, preparing my whole f6, h5, whatever. They go a4, thinking like, oh, I'm going to attack you. That's our area of the board. So here, for example, let's say queen b5. I'm hitting this, I'm stopping castling. So I'm creating
Okay.
problems based on their weaknesses here. And
That's funny.
b2 pawn is much more of a weakness than the a6 pawn. Because our pieces are all here, so there's no way they organize a successful attack here. Again, everything is based on the fact that this is your area. You have all your pieces here, but some of their pieces have nothing to do with this area of the board, and they never will be able to. So any tactical battle or strategic battle is most likely going to work your way. So let's see how this plays out. Let's say rook a1.
Okay.
How would I continue this? I'm thinking a5, a4, dislodge this one. Yeah, that would be my strategy. I'm already threatening a4.
Plus,
And
it's super annoying white can't castle here, I feel like, for white.
Yeah, they go queen e2 to try to castle. Nope, bishop d3. So this is maybe permanent.
That's really
And
funny.
if I get to break through the queen side, I'm just gonna come at the king from this side while they can't castle, and there's gonna be some devastating pin, which I'm gonna double down on with material.
This would suck to play as white. I would feel terrible
I
playing
don't
this
see a way
position.
to deal with a4 like right now. If you go knight c5, take, and these two pawns hang. I get to choose whichever one I want to take.
Interesting.
So knight c5 is not a thing. a4 is unstoppable, it seems, because it's defended twice. You have to go like knight c1 or something just to play a move.
Right.
It's almost zugzwang. Yeah, it's the
What about f4? Can you just ignore everything and just play f4?
Sure, let's give it a try.
Okay.
So if we do that, I'm thinking bishop e4 just to avoid any f5 tricks. Bishop
Yeah, no,
e4
f3 's
now makes a
dominating.
lot more sense because they
Yeah.
can't castle out of it. I'm forcing them to play an awkward rook move, and this pin is going to be here for a long time as well. So right now that I'm in the attack, this feels just like another attacker more than a double bishop move. But for
What
the
are we
time being,
actually,
I could just keep it simple and play this maybe.
yeah, what are we actually accomplished by this? I mean, it looks good, but what are we doing?
We're going to
That's my
win one of these pawns very soon,
Oh,
or
okay.
a piece if they're not careful. So we're amping up the pressure more and more and more until our overwhelming activity results in some sort of tactic somewhere. Let me show you a couple of concrete variations. So a4, let's say knight c1, only way not to lose material. Bishop e4, I'm just going to put out all the aggressive moves. Rook goes to, let's say h2. I think that would be the smartest to get some second rank coverage.
Okay.
I think that would be better than rook g1.
Cool.
And how would I break here? Okay, so this knight covers some nice squares here. Okay, I would combine f6 as well here. I'm going to come at them from both sides. Why not? f6, and I'm threatening to take. If they take back, I have the open file.
Nice.
Oh, that would actually be a
Nice.
checkmate because it's not as pinned, which is hilarious. Okay, give me a move for white, basically.
Okay, so I don't really want to open that files, so maybe I would let black take on e5.
Okay.
Can I play a move like I can't play knight d3, that's obviously bad. The knight, like my pieces are very cramped, I feel like.
Yeah,
What about
you're
just
going to run out of moves very soon, I think.
queen e2? You're still bishop d3?
Queen e2, you do have queen e2 because bishop d3 is taken by this knight. Okay, queen
Oh,
e2 is decent, yeah.
okay.
Queen e2, and since I'm in the attack, I'm following the principle, when you're attacking, don't trade queens.
Sure.
Because we need the queen for the attack. Otherwise, it would just be an endgame, and their king is safe. So I'm just pulling back for the time being
Yeah.
to b6, which also attacks this one.
Can I try if I play b3, is that going to create a really dangerous pass pawn for black?
b3, that does nothing about this. So I could just take that pawn. Right now, I have a concrete threat.
Will you walk into a pin? That's just fine because you
I'm
have
going
like
to
a knight
unpin with
check.
bishop c5 or with a check, so you don't have
Okay.
time to take my queen. I'm not really worried about the pin.
What about queen f2 then?
Queen f2, sure. Nope, actually, that's losing.
Bishop takes
You're lining up
d2?
to this. Again, keep track of these extra attacks. They're very important. In the game, you missed this on your king on a7, from e3 to a7. As
Yep,
soon as
yep.
you play queen f2, I'm like, oh, lines up. So
So
to
what's
improve at
the
tactics, make sure. So f takes e is just winning.
why?
F takes e is obviously losing the queen, and d
Okay.
takes e is running into d4 where you lose a piece. Your bishop is trapped.
Nice.
Again,
Okay.
your pieces are so bad that they're just in the way of each other.
But I felt that trying to play white.
Yeah. So it's not like you didn't find a good move and then you play quick. No, there's no good move to find. The pieces are barely movable, let alone to find something good. So this is the point in activity and shutting down their pieces, because at some point you make a simple threat like queen b6. There is no way to defend this. Not that I see even. I was thinking knight f3. No, there's no knight moves. The knight is pinned. Knight b3 with the other one. No, there's a pawn here.
What was
Queen
the thing you
f2.
were saying that I'm missing? Like X-rays?
X-ray attacks. Yeah. So when a piece is being attacked through something else, mostly a queen or king. When a king or a queen is being attacked through some other pieces, there's a very high chance that just clears out the way and becomes a pin tactic or a discovered attack tactic or something like that. So an
So
X-ray is not a tactic itself, it's just a piece placement which leads to tactics.
I just should notice like just alignment like on diagonals and files.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
The more you do, the more you can make tactics, maybe not immediately, but like later. So in your game, the whole bishop on e3 and king on a7, I noticed it immediately. And that's why I really didn't want to take the piece on e5, because after d
Right.
takes e, that gets opened. And you were like, oh, I didn't even consider that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keep an eye out, a special eye out on those.
Okay.
Cool. So basically, we said d4 is falling. Next move. Let me just play a
Yep.
move. Let's see what the top engine move here is.
Jesus.
King
Minus
f1.
3.
What the hell is king f1? Like, please line up to
Maybe
my rook. What the hell?
the engine says, I don't know what to do. Everything is bad.
That's probably a good indication that everything else is so horrible that king f1 is the lesser of all evils,
Can you try G5 just
which
to
is such an inhumane move because you're lining up g5.
Yeah, it's really weird.
That doesn't really change my whole thing. I'm
Your
just gonna
point.
keep on
Okay.
breaking down. Here d4 like this, bishop f2, rook d f4 here,
Jesus. Yeah, it's just
crushing.
that's crushing.
So okay, the fact this speaks volumes itself. E takes f is the second one. Against this, I could literally just ignore that, but maybe just take
Could
it
you?
back peacefully. I don't know. I'm thinking
It
knight
takes
takes d4 because that's a counter attack. Knight c2 is now a threat of taking this one.
F takes
So if
G7.
it's my move again, oh, f takes g7, I just have to respond too quickly. Wait, do I? Because this comes with check. Knight c2. If you go king d1, then this comes with check again.
Right.
If you go king f2, then that becomes a pin. So I have rook takes f4. Yeah, so knight c2 works. So if you go to one of the light squares, this comes with check again. And if you want to give up your queen, that's just game over. This is just recaptured.
You got f2 rook takes.
So king f2 only move, but now rook takes f4 because of the pin.
Okay.
And next move, knight takes e4. Knight takes e3 is just game.
Got it. Okay.
Yes. Pretty cool. So just absolutely crushing, basically. So this is what I mean. The benefit of tying down their whole pieces is that once you will just have a simple attack, which just there's no way to defend it because their pieces are so bad.
This came because they were playing on the wrong side of the board, it seemed like.
They wasted a lot of time. And they played this a4. So we were proving why a bad pawn break can also harm you very much.
Right. Yeah.
So this was our example of a bad pawn break. Notice how it goes from minus 0.4, slight advantage black. Black is completely
Holy, that's insane. Not for any like material reasons too. That's
no, just strategically toast. Absolutely. So just to appreciate how strong this principle is. So when I say, oh, attack in the direction of your pawn chain, you might say, okay, I guess I should. No, I mean like do it. Like trust me. Because if you break it, game over.
Does f6 count as attacking in the direction of the pawn chain, or is that just a nice separate pawn break?
It's a separate pawn break based on the ideas of this. So it more plays against their thing. So sometimes you have progressing your own ideas. Sometimes you play against your opponent's ideas. So we said f4, f5 is their main idea. But usually when you play f6, let's say they castle or something. When you play f6, they have to respond with f4. Usually, most people will. And once you take, they type out with the f pawn, and there's no more f5 pawn break because the f pawn's been traded. So as soon as there's no more pawn breaks, the structure becomes very dry and static.
Okay.
So only the pieces can play, but we can defend that quite easily.
And we would just go back to playing.
A lot of attacks are based on, we would just continue here. Okay. Right now there's a concrete tactic, so that's why the engine is going crazy, by the way. Knight takes e5 using the pin here.
That's cool.
But I was just trying to showcase this pattern f6, f4 separately in isolation. Most likely another purpose of this f6 is not just to break open the center with the bishop pair, which is beneficial in itself. Not just that, but also after f4 takes, they usually have to take with the f1. Which means that there's no more f5 pawn break, which all their power of the attack came from here, as you saw in the game.
Yeah, yeah, those two pawns, like the e5 and the f5 pawns.
Yeah,
Were
those
crushing.
were terribly strong. Generally, pawns next to each other, especially on your side of the board, are terribly strong.
Hmm.
Right. Okay. This was really good. Do you have any other questions about this game or something that we didn't cover, perhaps?
I don't know if you have any tips. This is completely unrelated to the game
Yeah.
analysis, but I was trying to work on the queen and king versus king and rook endgame, and
Mhm.
I ended up like getting the king like to the edge of the board, and the rook was on the third rank, but I don't know if it was actually the same as like the third rank defense, and I just got completely stuck. So I don't know if you have any
Mm.
like suggestions for how to train better, because the engine was
Okay.
suggesting just like a million queen checks, and I was like, I don't understand why this makes sense.
Do you remember the specific position? That would be really good. Or do you have it played online somewhere?
I also feel bad. I feel like we're over the lesson time already, so I don't want to keep it too
Doesn't matter.
long.
Doesn't matter. Don't worry. But
Okay.
it would be really instructive if you do.
A specific position. I
Did you play
don't.
that on LionChess or chess.com or
I think I played it on chess.com. It was. Yeah,
I'm not sure if
yeah,
that gets saved. Let me just take a look quickly. Against the computer, like,
yeah.
no, these are all
Maybe like if you just have any suggestions for how to like train or like how to practice like
sure,
for this
because
next week.
it would be great if you found a specific position because then I might say, oh, the queen checks are used for this. Like maybe it was very specific queen checks. I doubt it was just
Okay,
like repetition. Let me just make a position
I
here.
could like
So
do it again and like text you the position maybe.
that would be awesome. But just to generally illustrate the third rank defense here.
Okay.
Um, so the textbook position of the third rank defense is something like this.
Oh, and that was the thing. It was like wasn't the textbook position. It was just like the rook was just randomly placed on the third rank somewhere, and my queen was like
Doesn't
randomly
matter.
somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
okay, okay,
It's more about the enemy king's position more than anything else.
okay.
The defending king. If the defending king is central like this within one of these four, that's the toughest setup to beat. That's why when you research third rank defense material, it's going to give you this because
Oh, okay.
this starts a very specific sequence of moves.
Right.
Um, Everything else outside of this, like if it's a little bit to the side, it becomes much easier. And I'm going to share with you the practical reason why. So
Okay,
first,
okay.
let's explain the problematic part of the third rank defense. Why is this so difficult to break? Because
Okay.
in this position, in order to get the rook off of the third rank, we need to cover the entire rank, basically. We need to attack
Hmm.
the rook and cover all the escape squares to force it to go to another rank or somewhere away where we can fork it or make further progress. And where that gets problematic is because our king can cover at most 3 of these 8 squares. And our
Got it.
queen in this position is covering these 3, but also the blue one using the tactic. So it's covering
Yeah.
the blue one indirectly. So we're covering 7 out of 8. We're almost there. The only
Okay.
reason why we're not covering all 8 is because of the enemy king's position. And just to prove that, let's say the king was one rank to the left. So it's not in the 4 center ones, it's on the bishop's starting square,
Okay.
F4C file. So let me just make that happen
Yep.
here. Now our queen is not covering 4, it's covering 5. 1, 2,
Interesting.
4, but also 5. So it's
Yep.
covering 2 squares tactically, not just one, which means that our king, I'm going to make a different color because colors are awesome. Our king can cover the remaining 3. And that's how we cover all 8 of
Does it
the.
matter whose move it is here, or is it just fine for white either
In
way?
this position, doesn't matter because king b5, yeah, board orientation.
Got it.
King b5 is a pre-move here, basically. So they can play, right now it's black to move, coincidentally, so they're already kind of out of moves. If they play yeah, rook moves are all covered, as we said. So if they play
Right,
a rook
right.
move, they have to play something like this, or
Okay.
something like this, like out
Sure.
into the open.
If they
And
go
what
out
else
into
can
the
you do?
open, the idea is we're trying to like pick it off with a fork because the engine
Exactly.
also does.
Yeah.
The engine does that, and I just can't pick it off with a fork sometimes.
That's also something advanced that I'm happy to talk to you about because
Okay,
sometimes
okay,
you're going to be on the defending side, and I'm going to teach you how the engine does it. There's a small trick, but for the
okay.
time being, if a human just does a random, like out into the open, you probably pick it up quite easily
Or like Queen D3.
because you
Yeah.
just have to search for the diagonal. Yeah, so sometimes it's in one move, sometimes it could be multiple moves like this. But all you have to look at is how do I give a check on the rook's diagonal? Because the only way
Mm-hmm.
you fork a rook is using the diagonal. If you fork it from like this square, you're just going to get captured by that same rook, of course. So we
Yeah.
need to fork it on diagonal. So here it would be check, check, and take.
Right, right.
Check on the 8th rank. Doesn't matter where they go on the 7th because all of this move forks the entire 7th rank. So one of these, irrelevant which one, queen g7, and that's a fork. So that's how we would play against this. But the engine does something super cool, which I learned from the engine when I was practicing this endgame. It goes on the attacking king's diagonal. So here.
Okay.
Where the engine doesn't give you the room to fork it, because now this diagonal is extremely short. You cannot use these squares to fork because your king is in the way. And if you move your king, then they get to reposition the rook again.
The diagonal is extremely short. It doesn't look super short to me.
Like this one.
Oh, that one. Okay.
It's not this diagonal. It became this one. So you can only use the g5 square to fork. Sorry, b4.
Interesting.
You can only use the b4 square. So let's say you somehow, if they play inaccurately, let's see if I can make that happen. Got it. So here, and then you make this check, and for some reason they go here. Now you can fork it. But this is literally the only reason, the only square to do so. Yeah. So you have to aim at the rook's diagonals, but they are very short because your king occupies them. And you don't have time to move your king, because then they will move the rook as well. Let's say you go king up, they're just going to give a million checks from behind.
So what do we do when they do that, if that's the useful question?
Yes. So from here, you have to reposition your queen in such a way that your king is able to come up. So
we talked about
I said, yeah, that I believe we mentioned that in a previous lesson. So
yeah, you definitely
notice how we want to play king c6, king b6. We want to get the king up in order to prepare these checkmates. But the problem with that are these checks from behind, basically.
Got it.
They would give a lot of checks. So you have to reposition your queen in such a way to cover c3, for example, so that you can play king c6. Again, you have to count on...
Sorry, e5?
e5, yeah. Ideally with checks, queen e5 would be a blunder because of rook a5, but with checks, so that it's your move again. Because if you do, let's say queen e5, let's pretend it's not here, they can play a king move to stop you from getting the king here.
Okay.
Let's say you give a check here, white's move. So now you have the conditions necessary for this. Again, you have to be a little bit more precise. That's why this is such a difficult endgame, because now they have this check, for example.
So what is the key takeaway here?
You have to, the technique remains the same. You have to prepare one of these moves.
Okay, got it.
So I would much rather prepare this one, because I only have to worry about this one square. If I want to play the move king c6, I have to position my queen in such a way to cover this and this.
Got it.
Which is very difficult. I don't know what square that would be. But if I want to go here, I only need to worry about this.
Okay.
So I would give a check, let's say. So if I go here, they just go up and stop me from doing so. So I have to be a little bit precise. Okay. Here, they go one of these. Doesn't really matter too much. Here. So I give one more check, which also keeps covering this.
Nice.
That's where you abuse the queen's mobility. So here, they go back somewhere, doesn't matter, and here.
Now you get that in.
And I've broken through the third rank. Checkmate is to follow. There's no checks, and without a check, it's just mate.
So you get checks to cover the square the rook is going to check you on.
Okay, exactly right. So the way you win this is to get the king as far up the board as possible. The problem are the checks, so you reposition your queen in order to cover those checks. And the only slight trick is to reposition with checks, so that it's your move again.
Okay.
So right now they have to lose the rook. Best move is king d8, which just gets forked, obviously. Or rook b3, giving up the rook immediately. But yeah, you get the point. You broke into the third rank. This is the most difficult part.
Awesome. So to practice this, should I just keep grinding against the engine? And now that I know like a new thing, like maybe I'll do better? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And anytime that you fail or find it too difficult, screenshot it to me and tell me what you tried, what didn't work, why didn't it work.
Gotcha.
And I'll be happy to tell you, oh, maybe you missed an idea here, or there's this technique or something like that.
Great.
So
perfect. Thanks so much.
Very good starting point, and practice from here.
Awesome.
Any questions for me? Anything on your mind?
Oh, that was my question. Have a great week.
You too. Take it easy. See ya.
Okay, see ya.
And that was the end of the session. If you like the idea of chess improvement through personalized one-on-one coaching, feel free to check out the description where you can reach out to me directly. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe on my channel to see more stuff like this, and I'll talk to you very soon. Take it easy.